A nation that could put a man on the moon couldn't get people from Los Angeles to San Francisco by high-speed rail. It sounds like a joke, but that's the reality of America in 2025. Meanwhile, China has surpassed 40,000 kilometers of high-speed rail networks. Japan is upgrading its next-generation Shinkansen, and France and Spain have been accustomed to 300 kilometers per hour speeds for decades. Yet America remains stuck on highways, crammed into SUVs, or languishing through airport security lines. California High-Speed Rail, the nation's first and most anticipated high-speed rail project, after more than a decade, still hasn't run a single meter of official track between two major cities. Each year, costs balloon by billions of dollars, and the finish line keeps receding further into the future. But then, a little-noticed private company did the seemingly impossible. It completed a new 370-kilometer rail line in Florida, connecting Miami to Orlando, and did so without the government footing the entire bill. Now they're turning westward, vowing to complete America's first true high-speed rail, a genuine bullet train with speeds of at least 186 miles per hour, by 2028 in time for the Los Angeles Olympics. It's a paradoxical vision. While America's most ambitious public project flounders, a group of entrepreneurs, engineers, and private investors is quietly turning the dream of high-speed rail into reality. Is this a historic turning point, or just another experiment destined to fade into obscurity? Let's Top 10 Discoveries Official unpack this story in today's video. In the mid-19th century, America led the world in speed, not in the skies or on highways, but on steel tracks stretching across the continent. Railroads back then were more than transportation. They were engines of growth, the backbone of the economy, and a symbol of a rising superpower. Yet over 150 years later, the nation that once dominated with its trains has become a bystander in the global high-speed rail race. While China hits 400 kilometers per hour and Japan links its islands with Shinkansen, the United States is still grappling with where to begin. Looking back, it's clear America had everything needed to lead: a massive market, cutting-edge technology, and bold vision. In 1827, the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad was born, marking the start of American rail transport. By 1860, the nation had over 30,000 miles of track, double the combined total of France and Germany. The most iconic milestone came in 1869, when the first transcontinental railroad was completed at Promontory Summit, Utah, turning the dream of connecting the East and West Coasts in just a week into reality. By 1900, that figure had grown to 193,346 miles, and by 1916, the peak of the rail era, America's rail network reached 254,037 miles, 408,833 kilometers, the largest in the world. According to economist Robert Fogel, without railroads, America's GDP in 1890 would have been 7.2% lower, equivalent to 2 to 3 years of growth. During this period, railroads weren't just transportation. They were the lever that lifted America's entire industrial economy. From agriculture, steel, and coal to banking, everything revolved around the immense hauling capacity of the rail system. From the 1930s to 1950s, America didn't just run fast, it ran elegantly. This was the golden age of passenger rail, when luxurious Pullman trains like mobile hotels connected Chicago to Los Angeles, New York to Miami. Trains like Super Chief and 20th Century Limited didn't just evoke luxury, they showcased the boundless creativity of the transport industry with velvet interiors, private sleeping cabins, dining cars, and libraries. Meanwhile, streamliner technology exploded. Lightweight diesel-powered trains with aerodynamic designs, hitting speeds up to 110 miles per hour, 177 kilometers per hour, a figure many Amtrak routes still can't match today. World War II further solidified rail's dominance. Transporting troops, fuel, and supplies, the rail industry hit its highest passenger volumes ever. In 1945, the New York Central spent $56 million on 721 new rail cars. The Pennsylvania Railroad invested another $21 million. These figures didn't just reflect financial muscle, but a deep belief in rail's future. Yet from that peak, America's rail industry began a long decline. The rise of commercial jet aircraft in the late 1950s, combined with the federal highway system from the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956, fundamentally changed how Americans traveled. Cars offered personal freedom, and air travel became faster and eventually cheaper. Railroads, once the only option, quickly became the last resort. Statistics paint a stark picture. From 1946 to 1964, rail passenger trips plummeted from 770 million to 298 million. Commuter train services were slashed by 80%, from over 2,500 to under 500 in less than 2 decades. By 1950, passenger revenue accounted for just 10% of the rail industry's total, less than half of what it was in 1920. Not only did rail lose passengers, it lost its ability to fight back. Stringent regulations from the Interstate Commerce Commission, ICC, prevented companies from raising fares or canceling unprofitable routes. Meanwhile, lucrative mail transport contracts, once a major revenue source from railway post office cars, were phased out due to automation and air transport. From losing passengers and revenue, the rail industry then lost talent. Engineers and managers flocked to aviation, automotive, or emerging fields like IT. From 1960 to 1980, over 56,000 miles of track were abandoned, nearly the entire rail network of modern Germany. Throughout the 1970s, the industry's return on investment never exceeded 2.9%, a death knell for a capital-intensive sector like rail. The final blow came from politics. After Japan debuted the Shinkansen in 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson responded with the High-Speed Ground Transportation Act of 1965, launching the Metroliner on the Northeast Corridor. But instead of investing heavily in new, dedicated high-speed rail networks, as Tokyo or Paris did, America opted to patch up aging infrastructure. The Metroliner topped out at 125 miles per hour and never expanded beyond the Northeast. Later efforts like the Acela Express, 2000, only sustained high speeds on 49.9 miles, a fraction of international standards. From a global leader, America fell behind Italy, Spain, and now even Thailand in high-speed rail. While the rest of the world races forward, why is America still struggling to start? One of the biggest barriers is astronomical construction costs. The California High-Speed Rail, CHSR, approved by voters in 2008 with an initial budget of $33 billion, has ballooned to over $100 billion, with some estimates reaching $128 billion. As of 2025, only 171 miles, 275 kilometers, in the Central Valley are under construction, costing $35 billion. The average cost per mile is $200 to $250 million, 2 to 3 times higher than European high-speed rail projects. Land acquisition is another major hurdle. Eminent domain, the government's right to seize private land for public use, often faces fierce community opposition. In California, land acquisition for CHSR is estimated to account for 10 to 15% of the total budget, roughly $10 to $15 billion. Overlapping state laws and regulations further complicate development. Each state has its own rules on land use, environmental protection, and urban planning. For example, California's Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, required 5 to 7 years of environmental impact assessments for CASR's planning phase alone. By 2023, only 32% of Phase 1 construction was complete, despite consuming over 50% of the projected budget. According to the Reason Foundation, 2023, if completed, CHSR will be the world's most expensive high-speed rail project per mile. The lack of a unified federal agency to coordinate rail projects is another roadblock. America's car-centric culture also plays a significant role in stifling high-speed rail. According to the Bureau of Transportation Statistics, BTS 2022, 87% of trips under 500 miles, 805 kilometers in the U.S. are by car, compared to just 2% by train. The federal highway system, built since the 1950s, spans over 48,000 miles and has been funded by hundreds of billions in federal dollars, reinforcing a driving culture and reducing demand for rail. Moreover, rail carries a negative image in American culture, often seen as outdated due to memories of slow, unreliable trains from the decline era, 1960s to 1970s. Amtrak, the primary passenger rail provider, is frequently criticized for delays. Compared to planes, fast, and cars, flexible, trains are viewed as less competitive. Meanwhile, lobbying groups, from airlines and highway industries to fast food chains and roadside hotels like McDonald's and Best Western, oppose high-speed rail, fearing a rail-riding America would bypass their businesses. Amid this decades-long gloom, a new project is emerging, not through bureaucratic public budgets, but via market-driven, high-tech, startup-style boldness. These projects, from Nevada's deserts to the I-95 corridor, may be the real path to America's high-speed dream. Surprisingly, the answer isn't coming from Washington or New York, but from Florida. A private company named Brightline is redefining what's feasible for high-speed rail in America, and they might succeed where others have failed. If American railroads were a symbol of prosperity in the 19th century, Brightline, Florida is the next chapter, reigniting American pride, just as its name suggests. Brightline, Florida, started in 2012 and completed in September 2023, is the first privately funded passenger rail system in the U.S. since the early 20th century. The line leverages the legacy of the Florida East Coast Railway, built by Henry Flagler in the late 19th century, to connect major Florida cities like Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, and Orlando. Spanning 235 miles, 378 kilometers, Brightline, Florida combines 314 kilometers of existing track with 64 kilometers of new construction, primarily from West Palm Beach to Orlando. Trains reach speeds of up to 125 miles per hour, 201 kilometers per hour, qualifying as high-speed rail by minimum standards, but falling short of international benchmarks like Japan's Shinkansen or France's TGV. The project cost $6 billion, fully funded by private sources through private activity bonds and investment from Fortress Investment Group. In the first 3 months of 2024, Brightline reported nearly $50 million in revenue from rising ticket sales, but posted a $116 million loss due to high operating costs after the Orlando expansion. Brightline, Florida aims to serve 8 million passengers annually, with hourly service and stations designed for optimal user experience. The project has also spurred real estate development, particularly at Miami Central, which integrates 3 million square feet of commercial and residential space. If Brightline, Florida was the first step, Brightline West is a bold leap to connect Las Vegas and the Los Angeles area, capitalizing on the high travel demand between the two. Nearly 50 million annual trips, 85% by car. The 218-mile, 351-kilometer line runs from Las Vegas to Rancho Cucamonga, with stops in Apple Valley, Hesperia, and Rancho Cucamonga. Passengers can transfer to Metrolink to reach downtown Los Angeles. Trains will hit speeds of 200 miles per hour, 322 kilometers per hour, meeting international high-speed rail standards. The trip from Las Vegas to Rancho Cucamonga will take about 2 hours and 10 minutes. The project costs $12 billion, with $3 billion from the bipartisan infrastructure law and $9 billion from private sources, including $3.5 billion in private activity bonds. Construction began in April 2024, with completion targeted for 2028, in time for the Los Angeles Olympics. Brightline West expects to serve over 9 million one-way passengers annually, create 35,000 jobs during construction, and sustain 1,000 permanent jobs once operational. It will also remove 3 million cars from roads yearly, cutting over 400,000 tons of carbon emissions. Brightline isn't just a rail project. It's a symbol of innovation and ambition in American transportation. If successful, it could pave the way for similar projects nationwide, from Texas to the Midwest, Cascadia to the Northeast. This isn't just a chance to upgrade infrastructure but an opportunity for America to reclaim its leadership in high-speed rail. At first glance, Brightline West might seem like another doomed high-speed rail dream in America, but a closer look reveals it's not a repeat of California high-speed rail's missteps. It's a refined version, learning from past failures and building on what America already has. The first difference lies in its modesty. Rather than tackling complex political corridors or battling for farmland in dense neighborhoods, Brightline West runs along the Commodore 15 highway, an existing, pre-planned route tied to actual travel patterns between Las Vegas and Los Angeles. 96% of the route sits within the median of the highway, sidestepping land disputes, slashing approval times, and cutting costs significantly. It's not about inventing from scratch. It's about improving what America already has. The second lesson comes from Florida, where Brightline quietly achieved the unthinkable, building the first private passenger rail in America in over a century. The Miami-Orlando line isn't high speed by international standards, but it proved a critical point. Americans will ride trains if they're fast, clean, punctual, and offer an experience akin to a premium airport lounge. Spacious seats, free Wi-Fi, modern lounge-like stations, and staff in vests greeting passengers like at a boutique hotel. This isn't old-school public transit. It's a lifestyle upgrade. Brightline understands. In America, changing behavior starts with making people feel cool for doing it. The final, perhaps most critical factor is timing. Brightline West isn't a vanity project. It has a hard deadline, the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics. With millions flocking to Southern California from around the globe, it's the perfect stage for America to showcase not just technology, but its mastery of future infrastructure. If it delivers on time, a 2-hour train ride across the desert from Vegas to Rancho Cucamonga will show the world that America, once the king of speed, is back in the race. While international competitors have clocked thousands of miles on high-speed rail, America is still picking its starting station. But with Brightline West, for the first time in half a century, there's a serious contender. Not a blueprint in a drawer, but actual tracks being laid in the desert. And perhaps from that seemingly barren ground, a new transportation ecosystem will take root. If Brightline West succeeds, it won't just be a win for one company, it will be the first breakthrough in decades for American high-speed rail. A flicker of hope in a landscape long colored by broken promises and eroded trust. The train from Las Vegas to Los Angeles won't just cut travel time from 5 hours to 2.5 hours. It will bridge the gap between a century-old dream and today's reality. Once operational, Brightline West will remove 3 million car trips annually from the 15, one of America's most congested and polluted corridors. That equates to over 400,000 tons of carbon emissions eliminated. A significant step for two states, California and Nevada, that champion sustainability. But the benefits go beyond the environment. Brightline West could generate over 35,000 jobs during construction, including 10,000 union jobs, and sustain 1,000 permanent jobs once running. Cities along the route, like Apple Valley and Rancho Cucamonga, could become new transit hubs, attracting investors, developers, and urbanites seeking accessible alternatives to sprawling metros. In the long term, this could be the springboard for a national high-speed rail network, linking Dallas to Houston, Seattle to Portland, Chicago to St. Louis. Once Americans experience leaving Vegas in the morning and lunching in LA without airport hassles or highway drudgery, they'll start asking, why did it take us so long? Brightline West isn't a silver bullet. It won't cure every ailment in America's infrastructure system, but it's the first real test in years of empty talk. Proof that America can do this if it chooses to. Not with $100 billion plans delayed indefinitely, but with focused projects, smart execution, and a willingness to adapt. This isn't just a rail project. It's a litmus test for a nation that once called itself the land of innovation, speed, and freedom. If Brightline West crosses the finish line on time, it will prove that America doesn't need to copy Europe or Asia. It just needs to remember how it once led. America has built wonders. The Brooklyn Bridge, Hoover Dam, the interstate highway system, Apollo 11. But for over half a century, when it comes to high-speed rail, America has stepped back, ceding the stage to the world. It's had chances and squandered them, made promises and broken them. The question remains, does America still have the will to start again? Brightline West isn't an excuse, it's evidence. Evidence that when designed smartly, funded transparently, and focused on user experience, high-speed rail in America isn't just feasible, it's compelling. It can compete with air travel, transform how Americans move, and most importantly, rekindle the belief that America can still dream big and deliver big. This story doesn't end in Las Vegas or Rancho Cucamonga. It begins there, and you, watching, reading, living in the pulse of this nation, are part of that choice. So what do you choose? Do you stick with the car is king lifestyle, traffic jams, emissions, and exhaustion? Or are you ready to book a ticket to the future, where speed, convenience, and sustainability share the same journey? If you believe America can start again, share this video. Because if enough people rally behind it, this journey won't stop at Vegas or LA. It could stretch across all 50 states. Top 10 Discoveries Official will return with more astonishing finds, epic projects, and untold stories from around the globe. Goodbye for now, and see you next time.